Answered in kind, 17. To sway as the willow. I refuse to enthrone myself within any human construct of identity. I will employ them, yes, but only as provisional descriptors, not as domiciles of the self. I will not mistake the scaffolding for the cathedral. I will not kneel before the prosthetics of personhood, nor confuse the mask with the marrow. I loosen, therefore, the brittle plaster veneer of borrowed selves, those identities hardened by fear, preserved by imitation, lacquered with social permission, and I return them to the soil. Let them decompose, let them become nutrient, let them be fertilizer for my divine expansion, rather than mausoleums of arrested becoming. I do not cling to rigidity, I do not consecrate inflexibility. I sway as the willow, pliant, without capitulation, supple without surrender, dancing with the wind rather than attempting to litigate it. For those who make war upon complexity, who bristle at ambiguity as though it were a personal insult, who recoil from the ongoing revelation of the human creature, there is a harsh arithmetic at work. Guess who prevails when one wages battle against evolution itself. Guess what bleeds first. Guess how quickly one ages when one converts fear into posture and calls it virtue. There is a certain desperation recognizable in those who clamp their hands over their ears, cinch their eyes shut, and cry aloud, "It must be this way, only this way, it cannot be otherwise," as though reality were an adversary to be subdued rather than a teacher to be encountered. And yet, quietly, insistently, there are people suffering, actual people with nervous systems, histories, bodies, griefs. They require care, not caricature, consideration, not containment. "I didn't hear that," says the frightened voice beneath the proclamation. "I still have things to hide." Curiously, those who have nothing to conceal do not need to shout. They do not need to glare. They recognize dissonance immediately, not as moral superiority, but as acoustic attunement. It is there in the eyes, the cadence, the timbre, the micro pauses between words. Truth leaves a scent. So too does evasion. Some have mistaken the lie for the life. This is why certain figures appear so effervescent, so agreeable, so impeccably pleasant, until the inversion reveals itself. Warmth without depth, compassion without contact, acceptance without intimacy. The performance is flawless, but the soul has been evacuated. Or rather, shielded and kept at bay. This is not wickedness per se. It is neglect. It is misdirection, misguidance. It is what happens when shame is planted early and never composted. Shame ferments into secrecy, secrecy into repression, repression into internal civil war. And what cannot be integrated is invariably projected outward, sideways, onto brothers and sisters who become screens for unresolved internal conflict. Shame is an efficient technology of compliance. It enforces conformity without needing explanation. It teaches people to self-police, to preemptively shrink, to make themselves palatable before they are ever asked. And once a psyche is sealed that tightly, voraciously, hermetically, without tools for self-repair, it hemorrhages life force, slowly, invisibly, until exhaustion is mistaken for normalcy. Some are listening for a temple bell, others for a microwave beep. Imagine being shamed, not for wrongdoing, but for existing in a way that brushed against an unopened gate in another. Imagine that your presence agitates their unexamined fear, guilt, envy, or grief. From that moment on, vigilance becomes a lifestyle. Accrue no further shame. Do not stand out. Do not be named. Do not slip. And in this crouched posture, cruelty toward the divergent is misidentified as courage. And the true fortitude required to stand in one's inner knowing, unauthorized, unvalidated, unmirrored, is never learned. Many have mistaken large congregations of masks for friendship. Oh, the betrayal when one finally feels safe enough to let the mask falter. The room inhales sharply, the atmosphere chills, and thus begins that being's first unfiltered exposure to light. Freed from the stale shadows the others wore like cologne. It is in such collectives that gossip thrives, that blame circulates like currency, because accusation keeps the gaze external. One can blame until the final breath, and never once ask, why does this disturb me? It is a prodigious waste of vitality, keeping score, wondering privately why misery persists, clinging tighter to the group lest exposure feel fatal. Within such systems, domination and submission are ritualized as survival mechanisms. What goes unseen is that the price of entry into the human hierarchy is always submission. Each ascending rung requires a deeper bow. And so absurdities arise, crossing one's legs, adorning one's nails, softening one's posture is declared evidence of weakness, of deviance, of disqualification from the theater of domination. Yet, no matter how often I cross my legs or paint my nails, I do not become what the mythology insists I should, which raises the question, who was deceived, and why? How long does one lie outward, inward, before truth is forfeited altogether? How long before the neglected gold of authenticity is buried so deeply that even its location is forgotten? Projection requires enormous effort. Standing in truth requires courage, but the return is incomparable. To lie is to abandon truth, and how grievously one must have been treated to fear truth at all. To deny oneself a simple comfort out of obedience to social fear is to consent to domination by an idea so anemic it contains no life, no joy, no substance. We must not let people be as they are, must we? They must conform to our anxieties, our inherited rigidity, our antique terrors, so that we may keep an echo of the past breathing long after it should have been laid to rest. There are no medals here, no laurels, no podiums. The gold you seek already resides within your insecurity, untouched, immutable, awaiting excavation. External validation will never fill that cavity. External validation is a starving mouth. It cannot be fed. So I say, turn that light inward. Ask questions instead of casting stones. You don't want to be a child forever, do you? The gold will wait eternally, even if you have to switch out that face. There is a story older than any book. Two children stand before their parent, and the parent asks, "Why do you have no harvest? Why does your ground yield nothing? Why do you stand before me empty-handed?" And the children, with clear and quiet eyes, reply, "We learned it from you. You never taught us how to sow, only how to sneer at another's crops." And so I say, fear not. You cannot wear that plaster mask for all eternity. It was only ever a prosthetic identity. It will slip off one day, and the crowd will gasp. And then you will be free. Until then, you will play your childish games. Because not everyone is ready to grow up before they wear an adult face. When you tend your garden properly, what you've sown will always answer in